Hey guys, good evening. Welcome to the last Baltimore baseball babble of 2025. Start a minute early, so early, and I'll admit people as they show up. Welcome David Krell, who's spoken to us several times in the past. He's from the North Jersey, New York City area. Going to be talking to us momentarily on his recent book on Bo Belinsky. Couple administrative things for those who are interested. Our SABR Day lineup has pretty much been finalized and will be announced in the next couple of days. So those who will be attending, who live close enough, it's January 19th at the Peabody Heights Brewery. Don't want to give away everything just yet because it's still in flux, a couple time slot moving around. But you can expect an email from myself or David Stinson within the next couple of days so you can start signing up. We only have two more presentations left in this year since tomorrow's December 1st. We have the current Elysian Fields North Jersey chapter president speaking to us on this coming Wednesday, December 3rd. And then longtime SABR member, retired professor John Burbridge will be speaking to us in person at the Babe Ruth Museum the second Saturday of the month for the final SABR Speakers Series Day this year. And we are getting the next probably 4 to 5 months out finalized in the next couple of weeks. So you'll start getting emails soon of what to look for in the new year. I think that's about it from my end. So I will turn it over to David, who can talk on his subject matter. It's a very interesting topic, even though I haven't read the book yet, but I will get to it. And I'll make him co-host so he can share any presentations. And if you guys have any questions, save them for the end or put them in the chat as we're going. Thank you. Take it, Dave.
Thank you, Peter. I don't have any visuals, so you don't need to share the screen. My presentation will be in 3 parts. I'll talk about Bo Belinsky, the ball player. I'll talk about the glitz side of his life, i.e. the women. And then I'll talk about the addictions and post-retirement recovery. Bo Belinsky broke into minor league baseball in 1956 with the Orioles organization. And he was not so great, not so bad. He was a prospect and did pretty well. And then got to the Angels. The Orioles released him. They had other priorities, I suppose. And he went to the Angels in their sophomore season. You'll recall that Gene Autry had launched the Angels in 1961. And then in 1962, along comes Bo. Well, Bo has a salary holdout. And that's pretty brash for a rookie who's never played an inning of Major League Baseball. He was a character. And the press liked this. They saw this. They perpetuated this. Bud Furillo of the LA Herald Examiner was one of his advocates in the press. Walter Winchell of the New York Mirror had a syndicated column across the country. He had Bo Belinsky in his columns quite a bit. And in 1962, Bo lived up to the promise. He lived up to the hype. First 5 games he won. One of them a no-hitter against, you guessed it, the Orioles. He winds up 10-11 that year. And between 1963 and 1970, when he retired, he was up and down from the majors to the minors, from the minors to the majors. The best place for him most probably was Hawaii. He played with the Islanders. He had 2 stints with that team. And later on, he talked about Hawaii in a way that he didn't talk about other cities. There was a calming influence there, and he liked the people. In retrospect, would he have been better off just as a PCL hitter or pitcher, rather, Pacific Coast League or other AAA league? Maybe. But when a major league team calls you, you want to go to the major leagues. You want the money, you want the authority, you want the possibilities of playing for a contender. Who doesn't want that? But he just could not match that rookie phenomenon, that status that he had. And it's quite a shame. He finished at 28-51 lifetime. And I believe in terms of his minor league career, it was 77-77. I'm just checking that really quickly. So he was not what you would call a power pitcher or someone like a Nolan Ryan or a Steve Carlton. He wasn't anywhere near those guys. But we'll talk about that and his fame a little bit later. The glitz side of Bo Belinsky is probably what people remember. And he had a bevy of girlfriends: Juliet Prowse, Tina Louise, Anne Margaret, Mamie Van Doren, an heiress to the DuPont fortune. I mean, he had beautiful women and famous women that millions of men would have said, what the hell are you thinking? Just go with any one of them. And they adored him. Connie Stevens was another one. Connie Stevens was an actress on Hawaiian Eye on ABC. Bo just was a restless figure. And that's borne out in terms of the women, in terms of the drinking. It came to a head in the mid 60s when there was a clash, a physical clash with him and a sports writer, an LA based sports writer. This was a bridge too far. If you are in any company in America and there's one guy who's annoying, or woman who's annoying or brash or egotistical or loud, but that person delivers the revenue, you can put up with that person's behavior to a point. But where it goes from obnoxious to criminal, where the headlines are too much to bear, then what happens is a meeting with front office executives, and they pretty much say, it's not worth it. We have to get rid of this person. So they ship him to Philadelphia. One of his running buddies was Dean Chance. Once Dean Chance left, he started to flourish. And Bo was with the Phillies. He was with the Astros. Like I said, he bounced up and down from the minors to the majors. He was engaged to Mamie Van Doren. He did not marry her. That's a misconception. And if you see that in print, it's wrong. He did not marry her. He was engaged. There were 3 marriages. One was to a Playboy model. One was to an heiress to the Weyerhaeuser fortune. Weyerhaeuser, big name in American industry. Timber is one of their holdings. And there was a waitress in Hawaii. I reached out to the Playboy model through Playboy and the Weyerhaeuser woman through the Weyerhaeuser Family Foundation for an interview. Couldn't get one. They never heard back. So it wasn't for lack of trying. The post retirement recovery and addiction is what I want to focus on a little bit. He switched from alcohol to cocaine. When he marries this wealthy woman from an American industrial family, boredom and money are a very dangerous combination. So he now has access to money, which means he has access to cocaine, which was very expensive in the 70s. And it came to a head. He was high one night after she gave birth to their kids, twins, and shot her. He had a loaded gun. She never pressed charges. She didn't wind up hospitalized for weeks. She just, for whatever reason, refused to get involved in the criminal justice system aspect. That marriage obviously went to divorce, and then all 3, as I said, went to divorce. He was a troubled soul. He was restless, but there's the restlessness really becomes a problem, and you find this in entertainers too, where they look for something to fill the void, to fill the quiet. And it came to a head. He was homeless at one point, or maybe more than one point. and he was in some celebrity golf tournament. And somebody says, you would really get along with my boss. They were in Las Vegas. The boss was centered in Las Vegas at a car dealership called Findlay. And Findlay in the 90s had the Saturn car. And you'll recall that the Saturn car was ubiquitous in the 90s. So Findlay went from being a successful operation to a multi-state operation. It's a Goliath in Las Vegas and other mountain states, Nevada, Idaho, etc. So he meets this guy, Rich Abajian, who used to play football for the University of Nevada, Reno. Now, Bo was about 20 years older than Rich, but Bo looked at Rich as a father figure. Bo saw an athlete, saw someone who knew how to talk to athletes. And Rich was such a great manager, he dealt with his employees as a team. And he was the consummate salesman. He knew you're not just selling them a car, you're selling them multiple cars over multiple years. You're selling an experience, you're selling a safe place. Rich, I mean, how many businessmen do you know that aren't CEOs of a Fortune 100 company that garner a spot on the local news when they die? Rich collapsed. Rich died suddenly. He was in his early 50s, I believe, and it was a shock. So I talked to a few people who knew Bo and knew Rich, and Rich gave Bo a job, community affairs, getting athletes to sign baseballs, getting a celebrity to make a personal appearance, etc. He did sell cars. He wasn't a great salesman, but he tried. And one of the interesting things that came up in my research, and this was really dating back to my book about 1962, apparently somebody came into the dealership one day, one of his coworkers, and he said, "Hey, Bo, Anne Margaret is going to be appearing at one of the casinos. I saw her name on the marquee as I drove into work. Do you think you'll go and see her?" And Bo said, "That part of my life is over." When he got to Las Vegas, that's when the sobriety happened. He started to go to AA, and he got other people, ex-ball players, involved in AA. There was one relapse that I know of. There was a suicide attempt that I know of. He tried to stab himself. And he got a religious awakening of sorts. He was going that route, trying to find peace. He never really considered himself redeemed because he never reconciled with the kids. He had 3 kids through the marriages, and then there was at least one illegitimate son that he had connected with. And for my biography, it's titled Bo Belinsky, The Rise, Fall, and Rebound of a Playboy Pitcher. The editor initially said redemption of a Playboy pitcher. And I said, you can't say that because that's not something he would attest to. And I feel comfortable saying that, and I can get you people who knew him who will say, yeah, redemption is the wrong word. I felt more comfortable with Rebound because he did reach that sobriety. When you go back to the newspapers in the 60s, people were more interested in him as a character, it seemed, than a ball player. Now, had he taken better care of himself, would he have been a 300 game winner? Would he have been a 200 game winner? I can't say with any veracity that would be the case, but he would have been better than 28 and 51. Of that, I am sure. He went out all the time. And addicts, for my research, suffer not from the addiction to the item, whether it's drugs or gambling or sex or alcohol. It's the adrenaline rush that they get. It's the adrenaline. So this woman's not good enough. It's not about the woman. I want another one. I want the thrill of the chase. If I can get her, I can get this. I went to this bar tonight. I'll go to that bar tomorrow night. And it's just about the thrill of the chase. They become addicted to the adrenaline of going out to the clubs, going out to the bars. Now, to be fair, he's coming from Trenton, New Jersey. He's bouncing around the minor leagues for 5 years. He gets to LA, pitches a no-hitter. You go into any bar, bartender's giving you a free drink. Every guy in the place wants to buy you another drink and hear your war stories about Al Kaline and Mickey Mantle and Harmon Killebrew. Every woman in the place wants to take you home. It's a tough temptation to rebuff. Most guys, most ball players, I would think, indulge and then know when to say when. 2 nights before start, a night before start, you stay in, you get your 7 to 8 hours of rest. That wasn't Bo. And he found out that lesson much later on. And there are 2 pictures in the book. One is from the 80s, one is from the 90s. And you could tell in the 80s, he looked 20 years older than he was. Once he got sober, he looked like he could throw a few innings at an old timers game. It was a totally different look. So the sobriety definitely had a physical and emotional and mental impact. I want to close with this story, and then I'll gladly take any questions. Bo Belinsky went to the memorabilia shows that started to become more popular in the 1990s, and he's sitting at a table with Steve Carlton. A kid comes up to the table. Steve Carlton's a Hall of Famer, won more than 300 games. Kid approaches with a baseball in his hand. My dad asked if you would sign this, please. Carlton reaches out his hand. The kid says, no, my dad wanted Mr. Belinsky to sign it because he still had that fame, that hold, that mystique on people. I sitting next to a Hall of Famer. What 28 game winner is going to, Carlton won 27 games in one season. Bo won 28 lifetime. What pitcher do you know with that record who can command that type of attention and affection? I don't know of any. So I hope that you buy the book. It's available on Amazon. And with that, I will gladly answer any questions that you have to the best of my ability.
Anybody questions for David in the chat or this the old-fashioned way?
Comments, questions, rebuttal?
Go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, I was curious. It sounds like an interesting topic, interesting character to look at. How did you pick him, and did you have that same fascination with him going in, or was this something you kind of acquired the aura, see the charisma as you were researching him? How much did you know about him before you started?
I wrote a book about 1962, and that's when he pitched the no-hitter. There were 5 no-hitters that year. So when I looked at the 5 guys who pitched, I said, oh, well, this is interesting. How am I going to do this? And when I saw Bo's story, I said, wait a minute. This guy is really interesting. I'm going to focus on him. I can mention the other guys, but I'm going to have half a chapter dedicated to him and his exploits. When I started to get into the research and people who knew him in Vegas, who are still working at that dealership, responded affirmatively and with great affection. They said, hey, we'll help you if you ever want to do a biography. And nobody had done one. The last biography of any note was Maury Allen's in 1973. There had been nothing since then. So in recent years and decades, in my mind, the slate was clean. There was no biography of recent note. And I have a benefit that Maury Allen didn't have, which is newspapers.com. and the New York Public Library, where I could go to Walter Winchell's column in the New York Daily Mirror. It wasn't difficult to reverse engineer it. Winchell was syndicated. So I would just type in every year in the 60s in newspapers.com, Bo Belinsky, Walter Winchell, and whatever articles came up, whatever columns came up, rather, I would note the date and then go to the New York Mirror a few days before, because I knew that the home-based paper would have the column first, and then it would get syndicated across the country. And that's typically what happened.
Anybody else for David?
Yes.
Hey,
ahead,
Did
David.
you read the book about Steve Dalkowski, and are there parallels?
No, I mentioned him. There's an incident where Dalkowski and Bo and I think some others were drilling a hole in a wall to ogle a woman, but I did not get in. This book was getting to the point where if I wrote any more, I would have approached 100,000 words, because there were a lot of players. Eli Gerba, that's a fascinating character that I couldn't get into. Autry, I couldn't get into as much as I wanted to. The Angels rise to be a major league franchise. You have to be ruthless with the red pen because you're under a limit. And as I often say, if I wrote the book I wanted to write, the book would have been 700 pages. Ben, did you have a question?
Yeah, David. So I've already read the book, but I would say the thing that I think is so fascinating about his journey per se is he was basically like a street hustler kid, from
Yeah.
So low socioeconomic family. I think his dad was like a repairman,
Yeah,
and I think his mom worked at like a hosiery. But kind of you mentioned as well, anybody that's in his perspective that kind of defies the odds, and then he, gets to LA and gets the fame. It's kind of like that underdog story that everyone loves in Americana per se,
Yeah.
where, and I think that's what, when I kind of came across it myself, like you just root for the guy because, he had no idea on May 5th, 1962, that he would make, Major League history and even surpass Sandy Koufax and Don Drysdale at the time to make, baseball history by pitching that no hitter, and ironically against his old team, the Baltimore Orioles. So that's what I thought about the book. So I thought it was a really good read that you did on his biography.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Hey, David, there's a question in the chat. I don't know if you addressed it yet about did he run into significant legal problems?
Well, there was an incident after the no-hitter, about a month afterwards, and he was on a double date with Dean Chance. And Bo's date claimed that he assaulted her. The police came, it was 5 a.m, and she threatened to sue, and I couldn't find anything about an actual suit. He certainly didn't get arrested, but this was a case of he said, she said. It was actually he said, she said versus she said, because Dean Chance and his date backed up Bo. I think that you're right. He was or I think Ben just said it. He was from kind of a working class kid, but he fell in with the wrong crowd. And there are people like this, them from childhood. They just are restless. They're the ones always getting in detention or staying out late and undisciplined. And Bo had a likability. That's really what saved him. And certainly the press, when he got domesticated, when he married the Joe Collins, the Playboy model, there were articles saying, Bo, what are you doing? Where's the fun, Bo? So it didn't help that the press enabled him because they saw him as good copy. And it was the 60s, the Rat Pack. There was a certain swagger about the early 60s. Kennedy as president. So there was that kind of boys will be boys mentality, and for better for worse, it got Bo in a lot of trouble because he couldn't curb his impulses.
It's a couple of years later, in New York for the Yankees. Joe Pepitone
Yeah,
was a flashy.
right.
And, the parallels between the two as players or with their behavior.
Well, Pepitone certainly was flashy. Ken the Hawk Harrelson was flashy, but Bo had the Hollywood element, and I think that went a long way to solidifying him as a celebrity. If you're in LA and you throw a no-hitter as a rookie, that elevates you to celebrity status. You start dating celebrity actresses, that's a whole different ballgame. Then you're in the stratosphere. And being in Los Angeles gave him a gateway to that community. And there are pictures of Milton Berle with Sandy Koufax after a game, and there's footage of Desi Arnaz with his son at a Dodger game. When the Dodgers came in '58, celebrities populated the stands. They had the Pacific Coast League, they had the Hollywood Stars and the Los Angeles Angels in the PCL before, but this was the major leagues, and it was the Dodgers. And then with the Angels, you had Gene Autry with the celebrity factor, and having Bo brought a lot of attention to the Angels. It brought a certain kind of fun, a certain kind of swagger. He certainly had sex appeal, and that helped fill the stands. And that was true in the minor leagues too. When he pitched in Hawaii, the attendance went up.
Anybody else?
Did Bo have any close MLB friends? Yeah, Dean Chance. Dean Chance was one of his best friends, and I talked to Dean's son, Brett, who was very generous in giving me an interview. And he knew a lot of people. I mean, they all travel in the same circles. So when a former MLB player of your peer group, your age group is calling, they're going to answer.
I had one more question. Was no hitter more talent or luck? Do you think that he was just
I'm not as well versed as the people in this room to make that determination, but I'll just say that he had a Hall of Fame day, but not a Hall of Fame career. I mean, sometimes the stars align. I remember Len Barker pitching a perfect game in 1981, and I never really heard about him again. So with Bo, it was the fame and his name, the alliteration, Bo Belinsky, is just fun to say. If his name was John Smith, it doesn't have the same appeal.
How do you get the name Bo?
Bobo Newsom was a fighter, and Bo was in a lot of fights as a kid. His real name was Robert, but because he got in all those scraps, they nicknamed him Bo, short for Bobo. If you go back to the minor league reports, the newspapers recounting his minor league games, it will say Bob Belinsky, because the name had not really caught on by that point.
Right.
It's a fun read. It's got baseball, Hollywood, Vegas, addiction, recovery, celebrity, regret, enjoyment. It just runs the gamut. Ben will tell you it's a really interesting look at one of the game's most colorful players. But I'll close with this. Before Karen, I'll just say this. my mantra for writing the book was no condoning and no condemning. I didn't want to be in a position where I'm defending him. He's not here, and I can't condemn him because he's not here. So I'm just laying out the facts as I found them. Now you can make the decision on what you think about his behavior. Was could he have benefited from counseling? Should the sobriety have come earlier? I leave that to the reader, but it's just a no holds barred book, warts and all. And one of his best friends told me he wouldn't have wanted it any other way. If he were alive and you wrote this book, he would have demanded that you put in all of the negative stuff. Don't whitewash it. Yeah, Karen.
I just wanted to know if you were to make a movie of him,
Okay.
who would you want to have starring?
Jake Gyllenhaal.
Okay.
He looks
Wow.
eerily like him. He's athletic. I think he could do it. My dream would be Jake Gyllenhaal as Bo Belinsky and Margot Robbie as Mamie Van Doren.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I don't think you're going to top that question.
That I thought about that all through the book. I tried to picture it as a movie. How would this play out? And the if you do get it, I just want to ask one favor. If you do get the book, don't stop at chapter 12. Don't stop with the end of that chapter, because there is an epilogue where I visit the gravesite. And I think that just puts it wraps everything up in a nice package with a bow, and it complements what comes before it.
No pun intended on the bow, though.
Yeah, a bow wrecked on bow.
Yeah, it's in Las Vegas. I happened to be out there on vacation, and I took a morning out of my schedule and got in an Uber and or a cab, I think it was, and just I went to pay my respects. And it was it was an interesting experience that I recount in the epilogue.
Right. Well, if there's nothing else, everybody, I know it's still a holiday weekend for a short time left. So for those going back to work tomorrow, I'm sorry. I'm in the boat. And we have
Hey, can I just say one more thing?
Sure, David.
One topic that I want you to keep in mind, or one hypothetical, is if Bo had played for Baltimore or Detroit or Minnesota, would these problems with women and booze and later on drugs have happened? Is it because he had access to the nightlife that no other city has? Other cities might have nightclubs and bars, but LA is a universe unto its own. There's the glitz factor with celebrities. And I wondered that throughout the book, if things were different, if he played for the Indians, would he have had these issues? So that, I think that's an interesting thing to ponder.
Wonderful. All right, guys. Well, hopefully I'll see some of you back here on Wednesday, which will be the 3rd, as we wind down the end of 2025. So appreciate David, as always. I'm sure he will have another book or topic or research in the future to bring to our attention, and we'd love to have him back. He's a great guy. He's written several good books. I still love his one on 66. And hope you guys enjoy what's left of your holiday weekend, and start counting down to 2026. So if you know how to need anything, you know how to reach me, send me a text or an email, and I'll get back to you. And like I mentioned earlier, hopefully our SABR Day official release will be out within the next few days. So be on the lookout for that. All righty.
Thanks for arranging this. Thank you, David.
All right,
Thank you,
guys. Have a good
David.
evening.
Enjoyed it.
Everyone, thanks,
Good
Peter.
night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.